All right. Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to another interview session with Porn Reboot's neuro reprogramming coach. Welcome, Milan.
Hello,
Good to
how
have
are
you.
you? Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here as always. Today, we're going to be talking about outcomes when it comes to ending your out of control behavior. So Milan is going to be speaking about it generally just in our lives, and I'm going to be translating it to how it impacts your out of control behavior with porn addiction. In fact, just real quick, this morning there was a brother that joined our implementation program, and one of the things he shared that he had procrastinated for a long time, and asked our reboot strategist. I was like, wow, this guy's in our free group. He seems pretty active and interested. I'm just curious as to why he's been with us for so long, but he hasn't joined the program. And he did end up joining, and he said that he was just not sure that he could live a life without pornography. He wasn't sure that he would be able to find something to replace the pleasure that he experienced, that he would find something that would just give him that same high. Right. So I think it's very timely
Mhm.
that we're talking about outcomes today. As usual, guys, we'll talk from the basics. We're not going to assume that you know what outcomes mean, even though we do understand the dictionary definition. Um, Milan, what are outcomes?
Outcomes, the best is to compare them with goals because some people tend to mix those two. They are closely related. They go well hand in hand, and they shouldn't be separate.
Okay.
The goal suggests destination and kind of a
Okay.
conscious process. So when we set up a goal, we take number of actions. We know where we are right now and where we would like to be.
Okay.
When it comes to that conscious process, we can also say that goals are everything that is happening on the outside. On
Mm,
the other hand, when it comes to outcomes, outcomes are the one who are setting direction, how we are going to uh, reach that destination. And it's pretty much everything that is happening on the inside. So we have to take a look what is going on within us in order to understand what's going to happen when we reach our destination, when we reach our goal. Basically, outcomes are what we hope to achieve when we accomplish a specific goal.
okay. So outcomes are what we hope to achieve when we accomplish a specific goal. All right, cool. So, how do we differentiate? Just real quick, I'm just curious about this. What is the difference between outcomes and ideals? And what I mean is that I typically define an ideal as, this thing we create in our head
Mhm.
that is a perfect version. So when a guy would join the program, he would think, well, you know, I think that by the end of my time in the porn reboot program, what I imagine is I no longer deal with erectile dysfunction or porn induced erectile dysfunction. I no longer have the urge to watch porn. My relationship with my wife has no more drama. Um, but they might end up controlling their behavior. However, they might still deal with porn induced erectile dysfunction. And that brings, a lot of shame. And you know this because you work with brothers one on
Mhm.
one who have this situation.
Mhm.
So I just want us to keep that in mind for later on in this interview because those are ideals. And I wanted to differentiate between ideals and outcomes. Right.
Mhm.
So go ahead.
Outcomes can also help us form our ideals. Yeah, to
Mm,
become maybe more flexible about that final destination and what we are going to achieve. We can basically the importance of those outcomes is that we can consider what's going to happen in the future. Think about the goal from many different aspects. So when it comes to ideals, the outcomes will allow us to be more flexible about ideals that we are setting for ourselves in the future.
okay. So it allows us to be a lot more flexible when it comes to
Yes.
outcomes. Okay, cool. So
Mhm.
I think that makes sense because a lot of guys have a tendency to be very rigid in their um in their expectations of what their ideals are going to be. So their ideals don't shake. They're always the same thing. Cool.
Mhm.
Well, why why are outcomes important in our life?
Well, like I said, they help us understand different aspects of the goal.
Mm,
Also, what is happening on the inside. They help us understand what is the cost, what is the consequence of achieving a specific goal. They
mm,
help us understand if there is a resistance toward achieving a specific goal. For example, somebody who joined the reboot, yeah, they could feel resistance toward doing the change itself and
mm,
doing the exercises, achieving the goal, achieving the ideal. So this is what outcomes do. They help us understand what is that resistance, where that resistance is coming from, basically understanding our obstacles on our journey, so we can address that and achieve, of course, our goal. It is when it comes to outcomes, it's important because with outcomes we are actually deciding who we are going to be in the future, which
mm.
will increase the probability of achieving a specific goal.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right. So with outcomes, we are determining who we're going to be. I think what I'm starting to get from this, Milan, is that outcomes are not just about the end result. I think there's a
Mhm.
lot that has to do with the
It's a
process.
huge picture, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I never knew that. I always thought like, we use it so casually, like, oh, what would be the outcomes of this? Da 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 da. But now
Mhm.
there's a lot more. So
Ju-
what
just
happens
like
when
you
we
mentioned, sorry.
no no go ahead,
uh,
go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
I just want to continue on that example you gave for the brother who just joined,
Okay.
and he can't imagine himself living without porn. So he needs, with outcomes, he's going to be able to create a future self who he would like to become, to see himself living without uh, watching porn, and having different kind of energy, maybe same excitement, but from a much healthier behavior. Once he creates that kind of outcome, well-formed outcome, he will be able to go through the whole process, do the all the necessary behavior, follow the program, and achieve that result. He will be able to see himself how he's going to be in the future and accomplish that goal.
Gotcha. So I think right now, and I'm I think like most of the listeners, whether you're listening to this on a podcast, say watching this on YouTube or Facebook, wherever, I think I'm slowly changing my paradigm on this as you speak about it, Milan. So I'm
Mhm.
starting to see that our ideals, it sounds like they are based on pleasant things that we would like to happen to us. We really haven't thought about it. We just go like, well, this is my aspiration, this would feel good. Whereas on the other hand, it sounds like outcomes, we are more intentional about them, we are planning them, they are maybe a little bit more realistic. And
Mhm.
because of that, because they're realistic, it sounds like the process of putting them together involves challenging any limiting beliefs. So the ideal sounds great,
Mhm.
but we never talk about what if with the ideal, because maybe we're afraid that we may not
Yeah,
accomplish it.
exactly, exactly. And also, when we achieve certain ideal, we need to be prepared. Are there going to be any consequences for having that ideal? Maybe you like usual story. You have people who get rich very quickly,
Mm,
and they want to become a millionaire. But
mm,
once they become a millionaire, they lose a lot of friends,
mm,
right? So ideal is there, but outcome, they didn't think about the outcome. There is a possibility to lose friends. So if they had that on their mind, that there is a possibility to lose friends, maybe you could start taking steps to make sure you maintain your friendship, or make sure that you somehow avoid that happening, that people disappoint you, because it is going to be a new situation for you and your social group.
gotcha. That is very helpful. I'll actually chime in there and tell you what you should actually do if you find yourself in that hypothetical situation.
Hmm.
And that
Yeah,
is find new friends who who can live who are comfortable with your newfound level of wealth, right?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Well, this leads to the next question, which would be what happens when we start focusing more on outcomes? Yeah, yeah, what happens when we focus more on outcomes?
When we start focus first, in order to focus on them, we need to define them. We need
Okay.
to create well-formed outcomes, and one way to do that is there is a number of steps. We need to state it in positive terms. They need to be for ourselves, not for somebody else. We need to decide on the purpose of the outcome, for what reason we want to achieve that specific outcome. What is our why to do something? Also, they need to be kind of sensory based, like what will we feel, hear, see, notice when we achieve a specific outcome.
Okay.
Also, another element of well-formed outcome is we can put it in smaller chunks. So it doesn't have to be the really big picture, but it can be small picture that like all piece of the puzzles
Mm,
in front of us, and that will create that huge picture. And we also need to decide a context for our outcomes.
mhm,
So where, when, and with who we want to have this, in which kind of situation, because in some situation we're not gonna, it's not possible to have outcomes. For example, you want to start a family and then you plan to sleep for a very long time. It's not going
mm.
to happen because babies
Yeah.
wake up early in the morning, right? So that one, let me check. Yeah, we need to have evidence for our outcomes. How will we know that we achieved that outcome that we want to get with our goal? And I think at the end it has to be compelling. It has to be really motivating once we imagine that outcome. When we think about it, it needs to excite us. It needs to motivate us, and also to satisfy the ecology of achieving that goal and the outcome. So we make sure that it's not going to be harmful for us, for somebody else. That the cost and the consequences are not going to be something that we can't deal with. Just like an example, when we become millionaires, like, okay, so we're going to find
Yeah,
where we
exactly,
go.
exactly. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I think just to thank you for sharing that, Milan.
Hmm.
Um, I think when it comes to a few of the things you mentioned, like we need to find evidence for the outcome. I think when men are trying to end the out of control behavior, whatever path they take, I think it is so critical for those of you who are listening and watching to actually look for proof that this has been done and not just random proof. There are things like NoFap out there. There are a lot of like great therapists, but I think men often end up just looking for proof that's going to put a band-aid on things. Maybe you want to end this behavior permanently. You want to improve in your business through improved focus, and you want to be motivated and excited to do it again. And you want to fix your relationship, or you want to end your issue with porn-induced erectile dysfunction. Well, look for evidence that those things are possible. And that's going to help you fill in the gaps a lot. So you're like, okay, cool. So these things are possible. How long is it going to actually take to accomplish these things? So I don't think men look for enough evidence. I think they might see one or two testimonials, they get super excited, and then they just make an emotional decision. Another one, you said it has to be compelling and motivating. I think that's another one. And I think there's a lot of dry stuff out there. So whatever your outcome is, there are guys who are like, I want to be the best man that I can possibly be. I want to live up to my potential. That's why I want to quit porn. Are you excited about that? And if you're not excited about that, I think a good question to ask is, why are you not excited? Is it
Hmm.
because you don't truly believe in that? So again, I think what Milan is saying, when it comes to measuring outcomes, these are some of the criteria. Like, am I excited about it? No, I'm not excited about it. Then it's not an outcome. However, I
Hmm.
think, Milan, people get excited about ideals, but it's still
Mhm.
missing the reality. So we get excited about our ideals,
Mhm.
but we don't get excited about our outcomes. And if we can change getting excited about ideals to getting
Mhm.
excited about outcomes, which has proof and structure behind it,
Mhm.
I think things would be so much
Yeah,
many,
definitely.
yeah, yeah.
Things will be easier, and with that focus on the outcome, we can discover if we know that it's a good thing, for example, to be the best man we can be, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we are not excited about it. Well, what is preventing that excitement? Because that's really good news. That's great ideal to have,
Mm.
to be the best. But if you're not excited, this is the time. This is how outcomes help us to understand, like, why I'm not that excited about this, and then we can discover, wow, maybe I think I don't deserve to be somebody like that.
Mm.
So this is the key element of outcomes. They help us find what is preventing us to achieve our goals and ideals. And once we focus on it, we are able to kind of analyze what is happening and basically remove all the obstacles and create what we are going to become in the future, to really prepare, accept that kind of destiny, almost like creating a destiny for ourselves with when we focus on our outcomes.
Milan, that is so powerful. I'm really excited for all the brothers who are watching this right now, who are listening to this, because I think we've touched. I didn't know what was going to happen. So what happens is we get on here, and I think it was like a few minutes before. I was like, Milan, we're going to talk today. What you want to talk about? And Milan was like, outcomes. This is like less than 30 minutes ago, right? He's like, let's just do outcomes. So I love the fact that we come in and we talk about things that are so relevant, but gentlemen, that fear that you have when it comes to can I end this behavior, that fear that you have, let's say you've been in a program of any sort before, but you feel that along the way you kind of got lost, you forgot your purpose, you forgot where you were going. Ask yourself, is it because my goal was not structured? Is it because I was chasing an ideal? And how different would it be if I actually went into the process of ending my out of control sexual behavior in a structured way? Because many of you would never go into your career, you would never go to college, you would never start a business without very clear outcomes, right? Before you went to college, you were like, well, what is the evidence, right? Am I excited about this? Before you started a business, you did all those things. But why is it that we are so resistant to doing that in other aspects of our life? Like the issues we may have with things like out of control sexual behavior, right? So, with that being said, we are unfortunately out of time today. I would love to move forward, but again, Milan, thank you so much for joining us and clarifying. It's always amazing to get a deeper insight into some of the things we take for granted.
It is my pleasure to be always here.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we will speak to you later on in the week. Take care.